I thought I would take this opportunity to talk about what I think are the 5 best horror movies to be released in the last 5 years. That's from and including 2010 until present day. The first movie we have on the list is from 2010 and is written and directed by Mike Flanagan, and that film is Absentia. This was released, I believe in England at least, direct to DVD, and is pretty much a low-budget indie horror movie about a woman whose husband went missing, was declared dead in absentia. Once that's been done and those legal proceedings are sort of underway, she begins to hallucinate that she sees him around the house and sort of on the peripheries of her existence. She thinks that this may have something to do with a tunnel, like an underpass that is across the road from her house. And as she becomes aware of that, more and more creepy and scary things start to happen. What makes this film memorable and one of the best of the last 5 years is that it doesn't rely on cheap shocks at all, such as jump scares or false scares. It relies a lot more on tension, building suspense, and also a terrific use of mise-en-scène, which, for those of you who don't know, is like when some sort of image is hidden in the frame somewhere. Mike Flanagan, the director, does use that technique quite a lot to very creepy effect. It's a film that I've spoken about on my channel before. It's one that stuck with me ever since I saw it, and it's one that I revisit every October on the run-up to Halloween. It's a very creepy movie, it's very atmospheric, it's very well acted with a decent script, decent characters, and to be honest, a fairly original tone. Absentia is definitely one that's worth checking out if you haven't already. The second film on the list is also from 2010, and that is James Wan's Insidious. This is a movie that I reviewed along with DVD Weasel back when it was released theatrically. It's a film that I have fallen in love with and revisit every year. The plot follows a married couple played by Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne, whose child, played by Ty Simpkins, slips into a coma, and they subsequently experience supernatural happenings around their house. They believe the house is haunted. They bring in a paranormal investigator played by Lynn Shay, who discovers that it is in fact the child who is haunted by supernatural demons. Now, the film really is a film of two halves. The first half is a very sort of low-key, lo-fi, Lars von Trier-style family drama, before giving way in the second half to a Sam Raimi-esque, overblown operatic horror movie. Where Insidious succeeds where so many other films fails, however, is that while it does rely heavily on jump scares, none of those jump scares are false. You are never made jump by something that turns out to be innocuous, like for example, a shadow in a doorway turns out to be the family dog or something like that. Every scare is genuine, and they come thick and fast. It also really plays into the idea that scares can only happen at night. It lulls the audience into a false sense of security before grabbing you by the lapels and screaming in your face. It's a film that is full of not only those frightening moments, but very suspenseful tone, and also very frightening imagery that will stay with you long after the credits have rolled. Insidious is a movie that has stood up and survived through the last 5 years, through a slew of imitators. It's a film that I keep revisiting, and it's one that I cannot recommend enough, so Insidious, I definitely recommend you check that out. Next we have from 2011, Ben Wheatley's Kill List. Now this is a movie that when I first saw it, I really didn't care for it because I didn't get what it was trying to do. However, subsequently I've rewatched it many times and fallen head over heels in love with this film. It basically follows two hitmen, one played by Neil Maskell, who is the lead character Jay in the movie, and his partner Michael Smiley, who are given an assignment, a list of names to go and assassinate. During the job, however, things become a lot more sinister and insidious, and the job is not quite what it seems. Now, to go into any more specific plot details than that would be to really do the film a disservice, because I do feel like it's a film you have to discover, and I wouldn't want to ruin the plot for you. What it really does well, however, is carving out a sort of niche in the horror market, whereby it starts off as a hitman, a shaggy dog story about two hitmen, and then evolves into a sort of occult horror supernatural movie. And the transition is so natural that you don't really notice it happening until you get well into the third act. It's a film that not only does it terrify you, it also makes you laugh. It's a very funny movie and it's very British in its sense of humour. I watched this again recently for Halloween and actually laughed out loud still, even though I've seen this movie multiple times, at some of the very British dialogue that's in this film. You know, it does also go into the relationships between the two hitmen, but also the relationship between the lead character Jay and his wife, and some of the arguments they have. It's very well written. Ben Wheatley is one of the most exciting filmmakers working today, an up-and-coming filmmaker whose movies are always really compelling and is definitely one to watch. Next we have another film by Mike Flanagan. This is from 2013 and it is Oculus. This is a film about two siblings played by Karen Gillan and Brenton Thwaites who, as children, experienced a horrific occurrence due to a haunted mirror in their family home, and as adults really want to uncover the truth about what really happened. What makes this interesting, however, is that Brenton Thwaites' character has spent the last few years in a psychiatric hospital and really came to terms with the fact that everything that happened as children was in his head, and Karen Gillan, on the other hand, has spent the subsequent years being obsessed with what happens and is determined to uncover the supernatural truth about what happened to them. What makes this film special is the relationship between the two main characters. It plays with the audience in the same way it plays with its characters, in that your perception of reality and what's happening on screen is really distorted by the film's narrative. I don't want to go into too much detail about the specific plot points, but it really is a film that keeps you on the edge of your seat, keeps pulling the rug from under you all the way through, but also features some of the most frightening scenes in a film I've seen recently. There are plenty of scares in this. It's not over-reliant on jump scares, although there are a couple, but really the tension and the real frightening aspects of this movie come from looking at what happens to these two characters that you grow to care about over the course of the movie. It's ambiguous in the first act as to whether or not anything supernatural is to blame for what happened to these people as children, but becomes clear as the film progresses that it is supernatural and you really feel for them and want them to get to the bottom of it. Oculus is a very rewarding watch. It's a film that you probably have to watch more than once to really pick up on all the little details peppered throughout by Mike Flanagan, because it does reward repeat viewings. I've seen it twice now, and in the second viewing I did pick up on a lot that I'd missed the first time around. It's a rewarding film, it's very frightening, and it's definitely one of the best horrors of the last few years. Finally, we have a film from last year that I actually reviewed on my channel, and it made it into the top 10 films of the year last year for me, and that is The Babadook, a psychological horror movie about a mother and son who are terrorised by a supernatural entity. Again, it's another film that really plays on the psychological aspects of the characters and remains ambiguous throughout as to whether or not anything supernatural is to blame or if it's all in the characters' heads. It really does a good job of switching sympathies between the two main characters. You begin really feeling for Essie Davis's character as she has to deal with her troublesome young son, but over the course of the movie your sympathies really switch to the son as Essie Davis goes full Shining towards the end of the movie. I won't give away how it ends, but it remains ambiguous and it's a very fantastically written and acted movie. How Essie Davis wasn't nominated for an Academy Award is beyond me. She is heartbreaking in this film. You fall in love with her, but you're also terrified by her. That's no easy feat for an actor to pull off. So The Babadook, it's definitely not only one of my favourite horror movies of the last 5 years, but possibly of this millennium so far, of the last 15 years. It's a fantastic movie. It really does warrant being mentioned in the same breath as films like The Shining, those old psychological horror movies that came out in the sort of 70s and 80s. It's written and directed by Jennifer Kent, who is definitely a talent to watch out for. I can't wait to see what she does next. I cannot recommend The Babadook enough. Please go and check out the review I did of it last year, where I can talk about it in a lot more detail, but I would definitely recommend The Babadook. So those are my 5 favourite horror movies of the last 5 years, and ones that I go back and revisit every Halloween. What are your 5 favourite movies of the last 5 years? I'll be really interested to hear your lists. As always, thank you for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next video.